How? Okay, so I assume it's recording now. All right, welcome everyone. So today we're going to talk about online flipped learning and a particular model that I've developed of online flipped learning, which is called SOFLA. And SOFLA stands for Synchronous Online Flipped Learning Approach. So let's start with our first poll. So I'd like you to take this first poll, but remember that this webinar is sponsored by New York State TESOL, and we want you to join the organization so that you can enjoy the benefits of it, but also for those of you who want CTLE credit, if you don't know what that is, you don't need it. And if you want that credit, you need to be a member. And so if someone could put in the chat those two links, those are the links to join the organization, which is where you go first. And the second link is for the credits, the continuing credits that you get. Now here goes our first poll. All right, so I'm launching the first poll. Be honest, tell the truth. Tell the truth. It's a yes/no question. Let's go. And I have several polls and a lot of things to present to you, so I'd like you to move quickly through everything. Thank you. Do you see the question? Because nobody has answered it yet.
No, I haven't seen it pop up yet.
Yeah, well, it says...
That's actually because we can't click that link on a shared screen. You have to put it in the chat.
No, she's using the polling feature inside Zoom. I think it just has to be relaunched.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to relaunch it.
Yeah, oh, here it is, Helene. Here it is. The poll popped up.
Okay. Okay, we have 20 people, so I'll wait till the majority of you have answered. And just answer yes or no, simple question. Thank you very much. And I'm going to just take another minute for a couple more people, and I'm going to end the poll since most people have answered. If you don't answer right away, I'm going to just close these polls because we do have a lot to go through. All right, so let's take a look at the results. So we can see that most people who answered, at least, have not completed the pre-work. Some of you have. Yay! I know that 10 people completed it, so it's not 6. Now, what I'd like you to do, the pre-work was in the link with the title. So I'd like you to go back, and here is your link. It's right here, the pre-work link. If someone could pop that in the chat. I seriously want you to go back right now. If you didn't do the pre-work, I'd like you to go back to the pre-work, and you don't have to answer you don't have to watch the video because you see me now, and you don't need to read the article because we don't have time for that, but I would like you to go back now and answer the 4 questions. You'll feel better and you'll understand this session better if you answer those 4 questions. So I really mean for you to go back, the 10 of you that didn't do the pre-work. There's the link. Go back to the pre-work, answer the questions. You know what? While you're gone answering the questions, you won't miss anything about SOFLA, because I have 2 slides that I like to present at every session that aren't related to SOFLA. So you won't even miss it, all right? Go and do the pre-work. We'll see you in a minute. Answer those 4 questions. Okay, so now what I'd like to do now is show you a couple of slides that I use for every presentation. This is my mantra. This is my philosophy of education. And I'm going to ask you to actually say it because that's what you do with a mantra. And it's create fertile spaces. And in other kinds of sessions, I talk more extensively about what I mean by each of these 3 words. But for now, we're just going to say create fertile spaces. And I will be showing you how to create fertile spaces in an online environment. We know you already can do that face-to-face and in person. But how do you create fertile spaces for learning online. So quickly in choral response, you don't have to you're not turning on your mics, but say it at home. Close the door, and people at home think you're nuts, but say it anyway. We're going to say, after 3, 1, 2, 3, and say create fertile spaces. 1, 2, 3. Create fertile spaces. Okay. Not deliver instruction, not cover curriculum, not meet standards, but create fertile spaces. So how do we do it? We do it with the 4 E's: equity, enrichment, engagement, and empowerment. And now I'm going to show you very briefly how I come up with those 4 E's. So we start with equity, but when we provide equity, all we're doing is giving access. That's the first step. That's not the be all and end all. Next, enrichment. Enrichment, we have to have for ELs, right? Why should they get the minimum? Shouldn't they have guest speakers? Shouldn't they have projects? Okay, we want to enrich their learning. And all of this I talk about much more extensively, but I just want to show you. Then when they're motivated, because we're giving them enriched learning and access, they're engaged. When people are engaged, they're actively participating. They're not passive. And when they're actively participating, they feel empowered. Empowerment is not a transitive verb. They get their empowerment for themselves through the first 3 E's. And then they have ownership of their learning. So I briefly like to do that each time that I present so people can see where I'm coming from and to give people a chance to get that pre-work done. So welcome back if you did the pre-work now. And we're ready for the second poll. So here's the second poll. This is the prior knowledge poll. So in this case, I'm going to ask you what your prior knowledge is about, and I'm going to now see if this launches the way it should. Launch poll. And do you see the poll?
Yes, yes.
Good. Okay, here we go. What's your prior knowledge? Okay, let's get a few more people. We have 14, 25 in the room. Okay, I think we have enough. Some of you are perhaps not participating in the polls, which is fine. I just like to get a critical mass to get an idea. So I'll end the poll and let's share the results. So most of you, the most popular response, half of you, you've heard of it, but you're not sure what it is. Well, you're gonna be. Okay. Some of you haven't heard of it. All right. Okay. So let's move forward. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you the definition. Here you are. So I was one of the authors of this definition back in 2014. You can see down below. So I'm going to read it. Flipped learning is a pedagogical approach in which the direct instruction moves from the group learning space, the classroom, to the individual learning space outside the classroom, and the resulting group space is transformed into a dynamic interactive learning environment where the educator guides students as they apply concepts and engage creatively in the subject matter. Now, those last phrases come right from Bloom's taxonomy. We want them to be applying and being creative, right? Okay. Now, if I were writing this today, the only thing I would change, and what we're going to talk about somewhat with SOFLA, is that the direct instruction that you move out of class should also be dynamic and interactive as a learning environment. Okay, that's very important. And then you can see the 4 pillars. And we're not discussing them in detail, but if you go to the website, and I'm just going to show you briefly where you would go to this site, and you would see this definition of flipped learning, which I just showed you, and a checklist of the 4 pillars: a flexible environment, learning culture, intentional content, and professional educators. So you can peruse that at a later time. Okay, let's get back. Now, you know a little bit about flipped learning. I have another poll for you. Here's poll number 3. And let's see if we launch it successfully.
Yep.
Okay, take a look at this poll. I have a sense of humor, as you can see. All right. Okay. Just looking for a few more responders. We're up to 14, 15. There are 25 people here. Let's get a little more. Okay. All right. The non-responders, I'm not sure. I understand lurking, but there's not really much reason to not respond, but that's okay. All right, here we go. So a lot of you are saying both. So it sounds like I don't have to convince you, but there are some of you who are only doing asynchronous. And I hope to convince you today that you really need to think about synchronous instruction, not just asynchronous. They work together. And that's one of my goals today, is to show you what you can do synchronously. Okay. Now, if I just want to say something about the pre-work before we go on, which is, you notice what I did with the pre-work. I sent people back to do it. You know, one of the things about flipped learning is the pre-work is very important. And if only half your students do it, or less than half, and you allow that, they'll never do it. So you have to always insist, but not be punitive, and be firm. The pre-work is an important piece of this model. And eventually what happens is, because of peer pressure and because of fear of missing out, they will do the pre-work. So that's an important piece, and I just want to, you know, remind you of that. All right, so if you do like to do screenshots, I've been giving you a pretty good chance. I bet a lot of you have done it already. This would be your screenshot. These are the 8 steps I'm going to take you through very quickly of this model. Now, any one of these steps could be a session on its own. In fact, I gave a session yesterday, an entire hour session, to a small group that requested it on just step 1. So this is an awareness level. We used to call it the awareness level when I worked at the BOCES. This is not going to teach you how to do these 8 steps. This is going to give you an idea of what they are. All right? So we can all follow up at some other point if anyone is interested in more detail, but I'm going to go through them very quickly with you now. So, an advertisement from our sponsor. Before we go any further, I would like to give the people who came in after the first announcement another announcement. Please join Nice TESOL. And also, if you need CTLE credit, this is the link to go get that credit, and you will only get it from Nice TESOL if you're a member. So please join. I've been a dues-paying member, I'll reveal it, since 1975. So go deal with that. All right. What do you think, guys? Okay, here's step 1. Step 1 is the pre-work and the video lesson. So I have the left and the right, because a lot of people who come to these webinars might do PD. You might do it in your district. You might do it, maybe you're a teacher educator. I'm not sure who all is in here. So I'm giving you 2 versions of step 1, the teacher version and the PD version. All right. Now the teacher version is direct instruction that goes outside of class. And you always make sure it's very targeted, narrowly focused, with embedded questions and activities. That's very important. It's got to be interactive. Remember, I mentioned that before. Interactive and dynamic and engaging. And then you download the data from those activities and analyze it. You get it right down on your computer, massage it, understand it, and decide what it is you're going to do going forward based on that data. That's good pedagogy. And then on the right side, that's what I did with you guys. I gave you a welcome video. I gave you a Google form with some questions. I had an article for you to read and asked you to bring a plan with you so that you can think in terms of that plan, how you would shift it to SOFLA. So why are we doing that? Well, I wanted to introduce myself so you know me a little ahead. I wanted to get an idea of your thinking by asking those questions. And I wanted to gather some data so I would see what you would be expecting. And one of the things I notice is, you know, every webinar doesn't cover everything. And I'm not here about whether families have access to technology. That's not my area. And I'm not here about giving you a lot of tools. I'm here about pedagogy. That's where I'm focused. Pedagogy. I'm giving you a model for how to teach online. And that's the focus of this particular presentation. So this was the form in case someone's here who didn't do it, who still hasn't done it. I ask a pressing issue, and I highly recommend you do this. It's better than asking people what topics they would like to have people talk about. If you ask them their pressing issue, you'll get the topics. And so you can now see, and you can all see the results, which I'm sharing with you in a folder at the end. So you'll have all the pressing issues of everyone. One idea, find out what people know already. You're not starting from scratch. You all had great ideas, the people who did the pre-work. You can crowdsource those wonderful ideas and learn from each other. I also asked you what your experience as a learner was like, because remember, when you're a teacher, you still want to be able to turn that prism and look at things from the student perspective. I think that's a very important thing for you to do. And maybe the way you learn online is something you can use as an insight to see how your students might want to learn online. We should never forget what it's like to be a learner. And then where are you located was for fun. I just wanted to see, and then you can make a word cloud and you see where people were coming. I noticed we had a lot of Binghamton. Hi, Binghamton. I was up there. My husband and I went up for the Applied Linguistics Conference a year or so ago. Cold, but that's okay. We had a great conference. And then I ask you to do the reading so that you have some prior knowledge of the model before you even come in. And I'm interested in what you took from the reading. So there we go. Now the next is the play posit. And the play posit is something we're going to take a look at. And what I'm going to do here is just show it to you. And I want, when I show it to you, you might get excited about it, but it's one tool. There are a lot of other tools. There are many different ways you can get at this. Remember, I'm giving you the principles. I'm not saying in particular to use play posit, okay? Although it is the one that I use, okay? So I use play posit, and I'm going to take you to it now and show you. Hang on one second. New share, and here, and play posit. So you can see, if you see play posit, you see there I am. It's like anything else. You make an account and you have a profile, a user profile, an account subscription. There's a free version and a paid version, okay? So you have your classes, and you can see I do it 660. 660 is my grammar course. You're all welcome to take it sometime. It's boot camp. Okay, Flip Learning is the one we're in today. So I have a longer one if you're ever interested in a longer version, but today we're going to do the 3-minute version, and you're going to answer in the chat. Normally you would not answer in the chat, but we're just going to do a preview version of it. We're not actually saving data today, all right? So you should be able to hear this because I think I clicked share the computer sound. Do you hear it? Okay.
Make it a little bit louder.
Louder. How's that? Yes?
Don't hear it.
I don't hear it either.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I share it, I thought that I said use computer video. So let me try again. It got unchecked. I don't know how it gets unchecked. That's a speed bump for me. Sorry. Okay, let's just go back a tiny bit. I checked it again.
And I'm Helene Marshall.
How
your
now? Do you hear it
guide.
now?
Yes.
So let's look at the
Yeah.
learning
So it
culture
unchecked
hear it.
pillar.
I don't know how it unchecked
Here
itself.
are the tenets
Pay
of the
attention because
pillar.
you're going to have to answer questions.
First, that in a traditional model, the teacher is primary in terms of the source of information. But in flipped learning, we shift that instruction to a learner-centered approach. And so class time is more dedicated to exploring topics in much greater depth, and it creates learning opportunities that are very rich for our students. Students become more involved in constructing knowledge, and they participate actively
No.
in class
The other
and
thing we're gonna
evaluate
do
their
is
learning in a way
increase the
that is
speed.
personally meaningful. So we're going to take a look at
I just
all
increased the
of
speed.
this,
This
taking
allows
a
you to
deep
increase
dive,
the
and
speed.
here we go. some basic principles first.
Okay, here's your first question. Which is not true? So just put it in the chat. Which is not true? You can do it like A, B, C, D. So the first one is A, second one B, third one C, etc. Put in your answer. If you've been paying attention, you should know right away what the answer is. What is not true of creating a learning culture? Tricky, right? We have to teach our L's, that tricky kind of multiple choice business. So it's kind of tricky, but a lot of you are getting it. I'm going to move on. The answer, of course, is B. It's not about teacher content increasing. That's not what it is. Some of you answered A. I'm not sure you got that not. Okay, then we have to hit submit. And look what happens. When you hit submit, we got it correct, but I don't just say correct, I say why it's correct, right? And if you got it wrong, I say why. I preload the feedback so the student feels that I'm with them, that I'm answering, how they did on it. Then the next thing they have to do is hit continue, or they won't see any more information.
So the research shows that 65 to 90% of class time is teacher talk. This can be from directions and procedures, explanations and clarifications, or feedback and evaluation. So take a minute to self-assess and think about your own classes.
And here's the next question. Now, this isn't a right or wrong, this is a poll. Now, remember, I am using this because it's immediately relevant to you because you're teachers. You would be doing this in your class. You would be doing it for your L's for whatever you're teaching them. But I'm not going to teach you past tense. I'm going to teach you about the flipped learning model. So the idea is that there's a lot of teacher talk in our classes, and when you do flipped learning, there's a lot less teacher talk. So let me see what you're all putting. You're supposed to be picking a number. You pick whatever number you believe. It's pick a number. But this time you're putting a number, not a letter, because just put 10%, 25%. What's your percent? Okay. I guess I'm going to go with 50, which is what I'm seeing a lot of you putting 50. So we're going to go with 50. Doesn't really matter. I'm just showing you how it works. So for a poll, there's no feedback because they put what they want. Okay. And now we continue.
Our next concept is hand raising. There is some soft data on this showing that 80% of the time, 20% of the students are hand raisers. Either they're answering display questions, in other words, they know the answer, or they're providing unsolicited contributions to the instructional conversation, something they feel they want to add or say without being called on, or they raise their hand to ask a question. This could be about directions or about the content. So take a minute and think about the extent of hand raising in your classes.
Now, I just want to say, some of you are asking whether you're supposed to answer according to flip. No, you answer according to your current classroom that you've been teaching in for years, not this minute, this spring, but I mean in general, when you were teaching face-to-face and everything. That's what you're supposed to answer. You're supposed to answer that. And you can do it for everyone. Some of you are answering privately. This is no secret. I want everyone to see what everyone puts. No, you don't need to do it privately. All right. What percentage of students raise their hand in your class? Okay. And then we put 20%. And of course, one of the points I make in a longer session is we take a look at the difference. In flipped learning classes, we get much more participation. And we don't have that same 20% figure. Okay, let's continue. Submit and continue.
Is the way we're doing right now. They watch their video lesson and they get feedback from me on each question they answer. And you can see the green are the ones that they got correct and the red, the ones that they had trouble with. This is a question with 31 students. And also they can give feedback. So I can see their score on the questions and they can rate the video. She gave it a 5 out of 5, which is great. And then but she gives a lot of comments about what was hard for her, what she didn't understand, etc. So feedback in both directions, which enables me to differentiate instruction and scaffold it properly.
Now, I just want to pause for a second. This is me pausing in real life, okay, to show you this is the great data that you get from PlayPosit. So you can look right across and you can see the green means they got it, except for those few. I can individually work with them, and the rest of the class I know understood that concept. But then some of that red, if more than half of them had trouble with that, then I have to go back, and that informs what I do next time. Some of the questions, as we know, are not correct or incorrect. They might have been polls or opinions or something like that. And also you see how, as it showed here, they give me feedback on what they thought of the lesson, and that helps me to make better lessons. Okay, now we're going to finish up. It's only one more minute. You'll see.
Give me your feedback.
Now you tell me what you think. True or false? Using PlayPosit. The teacher can assess individual mastery. True or false, based on what I've shown you? True or false? Come on, guys, participate. You know you participate. Okay, it's obviously true. If you didn't want to bother to write it. Okay, submit. We submit. Yes, this is what you're doing right now. You're doing it right now, right? Okay, so we hit continue.
Feedback, and we can discuss flipped learning together.
Now, the lesson is over, the 3-minute lesson. So tell me what you think. What did you think of it? I don't mind. You can say whatever you want. Did you love it, like it? Put it in the chat. You have to answer it in the chat. Come on, there's 24 people in here. Just say, I loved it, I liked it, it was average, I disliked it, I hated it. What's your opinion? Yeah, that A, B, C, D was for the first one. Okay. You just write what you think. Okay. All right, a lot of people liked it, so I'm gonna say you liked it. And that's it. And then we hit next. Now you give free feedback. I always ask them, remember when she answered her free feedback as to what she got out of my lesson? So you do that too. Some of you have already thought it was different. Okay, put your free feedback on the lesson in the chat. Your free feedback, whatever you want to put about the lesson. And now we'll go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. So put your feedback in the chat. Okay, so so I'm showing you the paid version. It's not that expensive. I think it's $150 a year or something like that. Depends on whether you can get it reimbursed for it. At any rate, the free version doesn't give you all the downloaded data, but you can use Edpuzzle. You can use a lot of other programs. People know many programs that also do this. Okay, let's go on. So that was step one. Now we're in class. This is the synchronous piece. Always start with a sign-in. And a sign-in is not a do now. People say, oh, she has a do now. No, because a do now always deals with some content piece. But look what I do. So last night, it's not last night anymore, it's Wednesday, but that's okay. What I asked them, because I want to know if they'd read chapter 7. This is my multicultural course. What is the relationship between a deficit view and social justice? Can teachers help? So they all had to come in with something to say, reflecting on what they had read in the chapter. So that was content. But the week before, I asked about how has COVID-19 affected you professionally or personally, and they each said something. And this is something they do when they first come in on a whiteboard with their name. So this is me taking attendance and also taking the temperature of the room, all right? So there's an affective domain one, not a cognitive, because it was the elephant in the room and I needed us to talk about it. How's everybody doing? So you can do that as your sign in. And then 2 weeks ago, I asked them about their plans for the spring, not 2 weeks ago, spring break. What did they think about what they were going to do during the spring break? That again, you have to acknowledge that. And then further back, I asked them about the video itself that they had watched. What surprised them, inspired them. I'm not getting at particular information because I already have that from the data that I downloaded. I want to know what stuck with them as something interesting or surprising, okay? So you see why it's not a do now, but it's a sign in, and you always do that. And what happens is they don't come late. They don't want to miss the sign in. And you try and surprise them with it, okay? All right, next is step 3. Step 3, Now this is what I call the dangerous step. Why? Well, it's dangerous because it's teacher-led, and you want to make sure that you don't dominate. Remember the teacher talk thing? So you are leading it, but it's not a lecture. It's interaction guided by you, and it depends upon them having done the assignment, video, reading, whatever you've asked them to do. And this is something you have them do based on the need to clarify some of the pre-work because you've analyzed it. And when they do this, they're practicing and applying the concepts. All right, think of Bloom again, building on them and sharing with each other. What do I use? Whiteboard, chat box, audio. My students all have audio and webcams, depends on how big your classes are. And then what I do here is, I'll give you one example. Last week in class, they were contrasting natural language acquisition with structure-based classrooms and communicative classrooms. And I gave them a whole ton of characteristics all jumbled together. And the class had to make 3 columns, putting them in the correct column. They had to negotiate with each other. And if they had trouble, I'm there to help. But otherwise, I hold back. So this is what I mean by whole group application. That was my example. Again, it's what I teach. I teach second language acquisition. I'm not teaching, the ESL actual direct service. Now, the next piece is breakouts. Really important to do breakouts. They love the small groups. Do they chit chat? Yes. Will the kids chit chat that you teach? Yes. Is that bad? No. Okay. People need to connect, and that's good because when you're online, you really need even more to connect, right? They can't walk down the hall during the break and grab some chips, okay? So this is the easiest one for you because you already know all about it. You can do a jigsaw, right? In the breakouts, they each go to their own room, they work on something different, or you can have them all be doing the same thing. That's your pedagogical decision. There has to be accountability in the breakout. So you need to get something who's in the breakout and what they produce, put it on the whiteboard in your breakout room with, and you know the names of who is in the room. Sometimes you can do it individually. Sometimes you can ask them, each person needs to say what their piece was, okay? As far as the groups go, again, you're teachers. You can do any kind of grouping you want. It's the same as face-to-face. You decide how you want to group that week. You want the same groups every week? Depends on what kind of course you teach. Or do you want to have heterogeneous, homogeneous, whatever? Previously absent, sometimes I put one absentee in each group so that that person can get up to speed from the others, whatever strategy. Okay, that's one alternative. Notice it says option 1. Now we want to see what option 2 is. So option 2 is peer instruction. And for that, I want to thank my colleague from Colombia, Carolina Rodriguez Buitrago, who pushed me to do this. And I was screaming and kicking, but that was my professional development. She said, they can do it. So this I use in some of my classes. Peer instruction. They go into their breakouts and there's a leader, a peer leader who has prepared a lesson ahead of time. And they do it in Screencast-O-Matic. They make their own little video like I just showed you, but they do it in Screencast-O-Matic. And they don't interrupt with questions, but they plan the questions. So in the breakout room, they stop the video so they don't get nervous. They do the video ahead. And then they ask the questions right then and there in the breakout room. I don't have them do it in the whole class because that makes them nervous, but in a little small group, they do it. And then at the end, they have to prepare a poll. I mean, not a poll, a quiz. Well, it's a sort of a poll in Adobe, they call it, but it's a quiz. And they prepare 3 questions that I download onto my computer, and I can see, did the students understand the lesson from their peer instruction? And how did the peer do in terms of preparing the quiz and executing the quiz? And then they can give feedback. The peer instruction is a great tool, and in my, if you read the articles, one of the articles talked about the feedback from the peer instruction. They loved it. It was their favorite part of the course. So that's step 4. Now we move to step 5. Okay, step 5, you probably guessed, is when they come back from the breakouts. So now they're going to share. So this is share out. And again, being teachers, you can think of different ways they could share. So you can look at the whiteboards from the groups, and the groups can talk through their whiteboard, what they did. If it's a jigsaw, then they can share their piece. If they all did the same thing, you randomly pick a breakout group and say, okay, let's look at group 3. And then the others can say, oh, we put this, we added that, we think this, okay, like that. So they can compare. And there's a discussion that ensues. Now, I would like to mention something here about peer feedback, because I think people are very weak on their peer feedback. And I saw a very highly regarded webinar, which I'm actually going to recommend to you on the last slide, that talked about the bun, you know, the feedback bun. And I know that's very popular today, but I kind of like this model better. So that model is pretty much, you know, say something nice, give the critique, and then some general praise, and they move on. That's a kind of summary of it, but I like Shack. So Shack is my friend from Morocco, Khalid Fethi. He's a flip learning enthusiast like me. And he came up with this, and I've seen him use it with his students because I actually went there. And it's share, help, ask, comment. And the reason it's good is that the students then can focus. They can say, okay, what is my feedback going to be? Am I sharing something that's relevant to what the person did or said? Am I helping them with something? Or do I have a question to ask? Or am I giving some kind of a general feedback comment? Okay, but it gives them enough structure. You know how you don't want to just say, give feedback. But on the other hand, you don't want to be over controlling in telling them what kind of feedback. So I use this for share out time. I use it for blog posts and wikis and online discussions. Those are asynchronous elements. So I use it both synchronously and asynchronously. And I noticed there's a lot of positive feedback from students who've taken other courses with me where I didn't use Shack, but I've started bringing it in and they like it. It gives them just enough structure for peer feedback. So shout out to Khalid. Okay. Now, step 6. Okay, a lot of times you skip it, and you shouldn't skip it. Sometimes I run out of time and I skip it. But it's really important to preview what they're going to do next because it motivates them to do the work. Now, what I have is a PDF of the textbook, and I actually look at the textbook with them. It kind of gets them into the assignment. And I also ask them questions, which I know they probably don't know yet because they haven't read the material, but some of them might. So I get an idea of their curiosity, their inquiry, where they are with the next topic I'm going to be discussing. I also introduce some of the terms so they're not totally unfamiliar. I mean, it's pedagogy, you know, but you do it. Anything I can get them to be more likely to do the assignment. And I can also get an idea of what knowledge they have ahead of time about the new topic, all right? So that's inquiry, okay? Then the step 7 is the reflection page. And this is not an exit ticket, which is the other thing people have said in the, you know, they say, they put in the chat, oh, she does an exit ticket. No, because an exit ticket is usually something specific that someone wants to know, did they get this, you know? But what I want to know is what I call what sticks. It's called the what sticks method. So what are they taking away? And they can't just say, I learned a lot, it was great. You know, I erase it if they do that. If they put that on the whiteboard, it's gone. So they learn pretty fast that they have to be specific. It doesn't matter to me what they took away. It's let me know what you took away, you know? So it's short, but it's also taking attendance again. Did they stay till the end of class? And boy, they stay because they know there's a reflection page. They get the sign in, they get the reflection page. That's how you structure your synchronous time with them, okay? Now, theoretically, yes, could they be the, you know, miss in the middle, blah, blah, blah. But they have a step away icon and they're supposed to step away if they have to. And we always take a break, but that's for a longer presentation. I'm just kind of going through quickly. Okay, so I did want to, you know what I didn't show you that I meant to show you? I wanted to show you very quickly, if you, I can go back because I just looked at the clock. I only do this if I have time. I want to show you one of the peer instruction lessons. This is someone who did past tense. She taught past tense. I'm just going to show you a couple minutes of it. A minute, 1 minute.
Hello, and welcome
Do you
to
hear
the three
it?
pronunciations of past tense ED
Okay.
by Andrea Nunez. So before we get started, I want to make sure that we are focused on the regular verbs and only the regular verbs. When we want to make a regular verb a past tense, we add the inflectional ed suffix. As you can see in the words wanted, looked, wasted, axed, played, and rained. If it ends in the letter E, we usually add just the D, but there are other times when regular verbs end in a Y and we need to change the Y to the suffix IED to make it past tense.
Okay, so I just wanted you kind of to get the idea of what I do when I do the peer instruction. So that was Andrea's lesson on pronunciation, past tense, and then she had questions. I just wanted to kind of give you the flavor. The other thing I wanted to show you quickly is what my course looked like in Blackboard. Now, I know that a lot of you use things other than Blackboard. So people say, some people have said they really appreciated me showing my course in Blackboard. Other people say, why do you show us Blackboard? We don't use Blackboard. But I'm trying to show you the principles of how SOFLA looks on a Blackboard, because everything's there. So what you want to, we always take pictures on the last night. That's, by the way, that's Andrea who did the past tense. She's over there on the left. And there I am, ta-da, okay. And this was our final whiteboard. The final reflection page was a goodbye page. Okay, so I always do that. But what I want you to look at over here is the menu. So over here, I've got action items, Dr. M's grammar videos. That's what they look at when they're doing the pre-work, assignments, tests and answer keys, you know, all the things that you would put in Blackboard, but you can see that it's a flipped class. This is all the grammar trouble spots. They each had to pick one. This is the playlist. All of them are on unlisted in YouTube. They can look at each other's peer instruction. And I did my own trouble spot to model, of course. I did the colloquial preterite, which was my dissertation. I won't bore you with that. Then online learning. I always do, I start with an how to be a good online learner. I give them 10 tips. It's a video. You should all do that. Make your own video because they have to learn how to be an online learner. All right. It's not something they know how to do. Class recordings. I always put my recordings of every class and they have to make it up and send me something to show they watched the class. All the whiteboards go here, the readings, there's terms and concepts from every chapter, the PowerPoints, etc. Okay, so I just wanted to show you what it looks like, what the course looks like. Yours will look very, very different because you won't be using Blackboard, but I just still wanted to show you what my course looked like and how you put everything on your platform, okay? You're very transparent with them. Everything is there for them. All right, now we're up to step 8. We're winding up, okay? Step 8. So step 8 is the assignment. So after they're doing their reflection, then they have to do their assignment. So I always go over that in class before they leave, and their assignment is going to be usually the video lesson and or readings. Maybe they're collecting data, whatever, to post on a blog. Anything that their projects they're working on depends on the course. They post to wikis. All of this is going to be asynchronously done. All right. So they do all their asynchronous work as their assignment. And then I have here option 1 because some of you are doing professional development and that would be different. That wouldn't be an assignment. That would be a follow-up from a workshop. So just like for this session here, we did pre-work, so you would do follow-up. So if this were live, and many times I've done these live sessions, here are some of the ones I do afterwards. Note to self, note to administrator, note to me, communication with me, ongoing, which I invite you to do. All right. Applying it. Those of you who work in the same setting, get together and apply what you learned. Google form. Sometimes I put up a Google form with questions. What are you going to do in the next 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? That's the 555. I sometimes give a questionnaire. Okay, I taught you SOFLA. What do you think? What are the benefits, caveats, barriers? How could you implement it? That'd be a way to follow up. And then upcoming events. So those are some things for those of you who do this. Also at the bottom is the resource page, a link to the resource page with all the other webinars, because we have a lot of webinars. I just wanted to quickly show you this slide because, and this would be another one you could do a screenshot. I am not teaching you this slide right now. This is a webinar on SOFLA, but I wanted to point out, if I were doing just a workshop with you on flipped learning, plain straight up flipped learning, we would go through some of these, because you don't just do a mini lesson. There are a lot of things you can flip. And this is a list of all the different areas where you could use flipped materials for asynchronous work outside of the class. Remember, asynchronous, this is all the asynchronous piece. There's so much that you can farm out so that you make it more interactive when they're with you. So you don't realize how much you do in class that you don't need to do in class, that you can scaffold properly and they can do it on their own. Like I said, scaffold properly, all right? Certainly a lot of people don't realize that on the right-hand side, the teacher talk, course procedures, I go through my syllabus and everything as a video. They click. I don't do that in class. I do that on the video. And then I say, come to class. I've gone over the syllabus on the video. And I also give them, you know, the document, obviously. And then they come to class and I say, so what are your questions? Because they've already heard me explain everything in the syllabus. So that's the kind of thing you do when you flip. Same thing with all the assignments, okay? These are short videos. The other thing is, and this is general to flip learning, not just SOFLA. So these are the 4 key questions, the 4 key questions that you need to ask if you're gonna flip. And it's true for SOFLA, but it's also true for any flipped learning. What are you going to move out of class? What are you going to put in? That slide I just showed you are options for what you put out of class. How to maximize comprehension and retention out of class. That's that scaffolding piece and the targeted embedded activities like I showed you in PlayPosit. And then for in class, how do you make it interactive and how do you differentiate? One way to differentiate is visit the breakout rooms, see what's going on in the breakout rooms. One night I had to spend a lot of time with one group and the other group I saw they were doing fine without me. That's how you differentiate. And how to build accountability and feedback. That's extremely important. I've made that mistake early on. You have to make them accountable for what they do out of class as well as what they do in class and provide feedback. You could see I was giving them feedback even on that video lesson, okay? So these are 4 questions. This is another screenshot if you're interested in that. And I would like to say that some of this material would have been in a TESOL workshop that we would have given yesterday if we'd been in Denver, which we're not. So I've appropriated some slides from that workshop. And we are going to do it in Houston next year. So this is a little bit of a preview. Okay, need more? Okay, so I highly recommend National Geographic has just put on 3 webinars. This particular session did not focus on English learners, even though we're all TESOL people, because I focused on pedagogy and giving you a new instructional design model, right? But if you want to get more on teaching English learners online, I highly recommend the National Geographic webinars. I went to all of them. And in fact, there's somebody in here who also went to all of them. I keep seeing him in mine and in theirs. I think he's going to everything. I think his name is Amala Sand. Is that you? Anyway, he seems to pop up everywhere. But at any rate, they're all recorded. They're over. but they're all recorded. And it's Joan Shin. Remember, if you know her from George Mason, she's great, and her colleague. Anyway, they're great. Amanola, there you are. Okay. And also go to more webinars. I'm giving 2 more next week. I have to spend the whole week preparing them. It's a different, completely different, not this. It's a different topic. It's the webinar you didn't know you needed, online pedagogy. It's not just tools. Okay, so I'm going to talk about principles of online learning. And once more, our sponsor is membership 2020. Get it? Join Nice TESOL. And there's the link for all the other webinars. Okay, there's the link. All right. So I am going to be putting a link to this recording and a link to a Google folder that will have everything in it. But we're not done yet because we have poll number 4. We're going to do one more poll. We have one more activity. We're not finished yet. And I just wanted to show you before I give you the last poll, those are those links again for the CTLE. And I just want to give you this. This actually came from someone who read an article for today. It's one of you. Maybe you notice who you are. If you want to tell us, it's one of you who wrote this. You said, synchronous flipped learning was successful at the graduate level, makes me think that it's even more powerful at the elementary level of teaching. Students in the younger grades need interaction and engagement with the instructor. And I wanted to put it on my slide because so many people say, oh, fine for you, you teach grad school, I teach 2nd grade. So remember, you need to say to yourself, how can I apply this in my setting? What I've given you is an instructional design with 8 steps. How can you take those steps and make them work in your teaching and learning context? Okay, and now our last poll. If the stars are aligned, we will see the last poll. And do you see the last poll?
Not yet.
You don't see it. So maybe if I hit launch, you'll see it.
Maybe.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a long day. I started by training my dean on Zoom. I met with her this morning.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Do you see it now?
Not up yet.
Oh, but it is. It tells me it's up. Okay, let me end it and relaunch it. Let's see what
Wait.
happens.
It's here now. Just took a little bit.
Okay, so you do see it.
I see it now, but I don't know
Okay.
if you hit close. Let me see if anyone is voting yet. Okay, maybe
that-
relaunch. I don't see any numbers going up yet.
Okay. Okay, now do you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Every single webinar I've given, some of the polls are not visible and then you have to re-up them. So
I've had that problem too.
yeah. So people are answering. Don't see it. Some of you don't see it. Some of you do. Okay, you can answer in the chat if you don't see it. It says, here's what it says. While this session is fresh in your mind, would you be willing to share your takeaways, plans, and reflections in a Google form? And then it gives you the link to the Google form. And you have to answer yes. Yes, I promise, but later. Or forget about it. So you can put your answer in the chat. And we better put the link in the chat too, if someone can put the link. Actually, that's not the correct link. Wait, let me put it. I think it's, I have to give you the correct one. bit.ly reflect 4/3/2020. I think, oh, I did it privately to somebody. I don't know why that happened. Interesting. I'm still learning Zoom. I have to go to everybody. How do I even get back to everybody? It's got me doing private. Try that link and see if it takes you.
It's here,
Okay.
everyone.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to end the poll. A lot of people didn't answer it. Some of you said yes. So there is a reflection. And if for any reason that link is not correct, it will be on the web page. Okay, try it without the S. I don't know why. I thought I had. Thing is, I keep changing it because every webinar is. Try that with the S. Okay. Something is wrong with the link. Okay. Let me. Okay. Share results. Let's try it here. How about that? That's the link there. Try that link. That should be it. I'm sorry, I apologize. What happens is I'm doing so many of these and I keep having to change the link because I want to get a different reflection. I want to know each iteration of it, how the reflections look. The last people, there were 35 and 15 did it. So you guys can do better than that, right? You're a smaller group. That should be it. Try that one. Oh no, I forgot the S. Select. I keep typing the same thing over and over again. Try it with the S. Okay, so that's it. And thank you for coming. I hope you didn't work with the S, so do it without the S. Sorry about the link. I do want you to reflect. All right. Okay. That's okay. I understand. It's not important if you don't reflect. It'll work. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. You can look on the doc, the Google Doc that Laura set up, and you'll see the link to the reflection. You can put your reflection right here if you want. What was your takeaway? What are you going to do differently in your learning? That's basically what I was going to ask you. So thank you. Thank you all for coming. I hope you like SOFLA. I don't know why that link doesn't go there. That link works for me. The link on the slide works perfectly for me. The link on the slide, look, here I am. It took me right there to the, wait a second. No, I don't see it. It took me to, oh, it took it to me. It took me to it in Safari. There it is. So now you see I'm sharing the reflection with you. What is your most significant insight? The one on the slide worked. The one on that slide worked. That was the correct
Pull
link.
it up again and I'll type it in the chat.
Okay, that's working because I just clicked on it. That link is what I clicked on to get to the reflection. So it is correct. And I just got to the reflection. And if anyone doesn't see it, here's what it is. 3 questions. Basic. What's your new insight? What is one change you plan to make in your online teaching as a result of the webinar? And then write an overall reflection. It's wide open. What you learned from this, what you're still wondering about, what you're going to share with colleagues. Okay. And it being 6 o'clock, we say farewell. Please contact me. I am available 24/7 to anybody who wants to try any of this or share your ideas about SOFLA or flipped learning. And if you didn't get a chance to read the articles, they're in the pre-work, so you should read them if you can. Okay? I'm happy to work with anybody. I'm doing a lot of coaching these days. And I hope to see you in next week's webinar. Bye. We're going to end the meeting. Thank you for coming. Bye, my person from Pakistan who comes to everything. I'm going to end it.